and he sets him up at the Watergate
Yeah.
Hotel. And then from across the street, he calls in the security. He's like, some people are putting flashlights through the window, really waking me up.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is so good. I forgot how good Forrest Gump is.
Why does your Forrest Gump sound like Elvis?
Thank you very much. He meets Elvis too.
He does.
I finally
Watched.
I finally
Watched. I
finally
watched. I
finally
watched.
I finally
Watched.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And this is Alon, and we finally watched All the President's Men.
So I really love these type of movies. I realized after the fact that Spotlight is really the first one, but then I
That
started
you've
looking.
seen.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was my introduction into the genre. But if I am being like a very strict constructionalist on this genre, there's not that many in
Say
it.
that 3 times fast.
Yeah, I know. I fucking struggled. I'm like fucking mush mouth. So if you're a strict constructionalist on this genre, yeah, it is hard because constructionalist.
one more time.
You get out of constructionalist, and then you hit genre at the end. You think
Yeah.
you finished, and then there's
Right.
genre.
It fucks up.
But so like I was like, I just typed into Google, what are some movies like All the President's Men? Spotlight wasn't even listed because a lot of people focus on the sort of paranoia of this movie.
Well, you could almost divide this into 2 genres, right? 2 separate genres, which is document drama,
Yes.
and then the other one is newspaper drama.
And so if you have docudrama, you can get a lot of lawyer movies in there,
Sure.
right? I
Mhm.
think A Civil Action is one that's a lot like this. And then you could even say like Michael Clayton. But then if you consider this just like a process movie, you could even bring in I guess like The Big Short, but I was thinking more of Margin Call, like that type of movie where it's like people in a room talking through an issue. But I am strictly talking about like newspaper movies, right? And so, State of Play is one, but that's got like this really like not mystery, but it's like a solving of a, I don't know, it's like more thriller. This, I think All the President's Men for when it came out is a thriller. But to me, the focus watching it now is like the docudrama. So Spotlight and this, I think, are like kind of the seminal two. To me, Spotlight is the GOAT. Maybe that's because I saw it. We're going to eventually do Spotlight as like a Christmas episode. And I watched Spotlight. I had never planned on watching it just because of the subject matter. And finally, I was like, it won Best Picture. I have to watch it, trying to catch up on those. I watched it. Next day, I put it back on. My wife's like, what the fuck are you doing watching that again? I was like, I don't know. It's just so good.
It is good.
And I like now look for
I would
these.
say it's probably Mark Ruffalo's best acting gig.
We can talk about that when we do the episode. So looking at like other versions of this, like Zodiac is listed, which the first half of Zodiac, very, very much so, I would say. It's State of Play. The Insider, which is about, I think that's a little bit different to me, although I think if you expand the category, that works. And then there's 2 that I think really belong. She Said, which I watched. It's the Harvey Weinstein movie about the investigation into him, which I wanted to love, and I don't think is that great. And then The Post, which is about the Washington Post in, I think, 1971, breaking a scandal. So it is like almost a prequel to this movie. And Meryl Streep plays like the woman that runs the Post. And you're like, oh, well, why is she not in this movie? Because she actually told Redford she didn't want to be in the movie. So they were casting people to be her. And then they're like, all right, well, I guess that part's not going to be in here.
You're saying she didn't want to be represented in the movie?
Correct. I mean, she's barely named in the movie.
I think one time.
How do you know?
Because they mention like a higher up at the Post.
Right, yeah, so that's probably her.
It's probably
She
her.
plays Kay Graham, yes, which they do mention once, and that, yeah, I remember.
Context clues.
You did great. I'm so proud of you.
The other thing about how amazing this movie is that, this is all about Watergate and Nixon. by the time everything happened, this movie was made 4 years afterwards,
Right. So a
based
lot
on a
of
book that I assume had to have been written before this.
yeah. So Redford was so interested in this that he actually was talking with Woodward and Bernstein as they were writing it and was advising them, you need to make this more about your process and what you went through to make this.
You gotta make this punchier. If I'm gonna play you in a movie, this has to be some good shit, okay?
Well, then the other thing he said is he wasn't really sure he wanted to play Woodward, but the WB would only make the movie if he agreed to do it. And then he was like, well, now I have to find someone equal to me to play Bernstein. Otherwise, it's going to throw everything off. I guess Al Pacino was considered, and then he offered the movie to Hoffman at like a basketball game. He's like, hey, would you do this with me?
Hoffman is such a good pick.
He is. And it's funny is, mentioning Spotlight, there's so many similarities and like differences to the movie. Redford gets put on this case first, and Hoffman's sort of like walking around, trailing it. He's interested in it. And he's like, his editor, Simons or whatever, is like, hey, did you finish your story? He's like, I finished it. He's like, oh, really? It's ready to print? He's like, still polishing, which is like so similar to RDJ. And his editor who's like, have you finished the story? He's like, yeah, it's almost there. He's like, yeah, but it's not there. You know what I mean? Like
in Zodiac?
yeah, in Zodiac, yeah.
You said Spotlight.
Oh, my bad. RDJ in Zodiac.
The famous RDJ role in Spotlight?
Who would he have played in Spotlight? The Ruffalo?
Ruffalo.
No, well, I guess he could have been the other guy, right?
I watched that movie when it first came to theaters. I watched it in theaters, never watched it since.
Well, I mean, you're going to have to watch it since when we do it.
I want to.
Christmas 2026.
Another movie you've never seen is Aaron Brockovich, which is like a perfect procedural. But then again, that's more on the lawyer side than a newspaper side.
So Brian Darcy James could have been an RGJ part, although I think he's great in this. So it's like not going to change it. Maybe he could have taken the Stanley Tucci, but you can't take that away from Tucci.
You can't take it from the Tucci man.
Other really cool thing about this. So Jason Robards plays Ben Bradley. We have done a Jason Robards movie. Do you know what that is?
No.
He is the father of Tom Cruise in Magnolia.
Oh, okay.
And Jason Robards in this movie plays Ben Bradley Sr. Ben Bradley Jr. is played by John Slattery in Spotlight.
This is probably really cool to you.
He's the son. So the editor of the Watergate scandal, his son was the editor of the church priest scandal that was covered in Spotlight.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you didn't pick up on it the first time.
You were throwing a lot of names in there, and I was still thinking about the thing I was saying.
Well,
and,
it was two names, but the only difference between them was senior and junior.
You were throwing character names in there. Don't lie.
Okay, my bad. Sorry. Yeah, but so you brought out like how this came out right after Watergate.
Right.
And I find that so interesting because like the opening of the reenactment, I would imagine people watching this loved that, right? Like seeing the thing that they imagined in their eyes and how it went. Which, by the way, did you recognize one of the cops? Because I did not. I saw it later when I was looking at the cast list.
Oh, no.
F. Murray Abraham, who played Salieri in Amadeus. Yeah. Well, and a bunch of shit, obviously. He's one of the cops.
Oh, okay.
Which is pretty cool.
Quite an age difference there. The other thing, too, this reminds me of with like the quickness from actual world event to making it into a movie is Casablanca. How Casablanca was made in 1942 before World War II even ended, but it was about the ending of World War II.
So one that comes to mind with that is United 93 and World Trade Center.
Yeah.
Which I was like, those are, I saw United 93 way after because I was like, that's just way too soon for both of those. Like it was way too raw. Like obviously I didn't live in New York, but I still lived through that. You know what I mean? So it was like so kind of odd. Whereas this would be this is a little bit different in that it's like, yeah, it's a thing that happened, but it's like you didn't. I don't know. I don't know how much you experienced it every day, and like you would. It's interesting. So this movie sort of just ends before we get all of the fallout because like they reported this story, but then it took a guy on the inside to admit that it had happened for everything to unravel and people to go to jail and for Nixon to resign. And so that all happens publicly. And then you're like, oh, now we're going to see all the president's men, which is going to tell us the backstory of how they reported on this. So
Right.
it's still like information that you may not have had. Whereas the 9/11 movies, it's like, yeah, man, we all saw that on the news. I watched that news for a week straight,
Oh, before I forget,
months even,
when this episode airs, Happy President's Day.
Yeah, it's totally coincidence. We definitely didn't shuffle things around.
Uh, well, Crybaby can wait one more week. It's not going anywhere. The other thing too is when I mentioned to my therapist that I was doing this movie for President's Day, he then quickly suggested, he's like, you should do that Melania documentary, and I was like, I'm okay.
Yeah, we can be part of the $800,000 that movie's made.
Oh, is that bad? That's
I
bad.
don't know. It hasn't made a ton, and I think it's like got one of the largest gulf between critics and audience. Although that's probably
That's
changes,
why it would bring in downloads for us.
right? Yeah,
Controversy.
make
Speaking of,
pods, make pods great again.
I think there's actually a podcast called that.
Wouldn't shock me.
There is a lot of controversy when it comes to the subject of Watergate. I was watching like a snippet of Forrest Gump the other night, and I remember that there's a great scene where, because he plays like great football for Alabama or something, he gets to, or no, when he comes back from the Vietnam War, he gets to get the Medal of Honor from Nixon.
Yeah,
And Nixon is like, "Where are you staying, son?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm staying at this hotel." And he's like, "I know a better one." And he sets him up at the Watergate
Yeah.
Hotel. And then from across the street, he calls in the security. He's like, "Some people are putting flashlights through the window, really waking me up."
yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, this is so good." I forgot how good Forrest Gump is.
Why does your Forrest Gump sound like Elvis?
Thank you very much. He meets Elvis too.
Yeah, he does.
I might not be a smart man, but I sure know what love is. I try to do a little bit of both there.
That was pretty good. I will say
Thanks.
that's pretty good. And also Watergate has turned every like controversy now into. I mean, this is football related, so you wouldn't know about it, but like Spygate, Deflategate, or two Patriot scandals that just use the word "gate" now, even though
Sure. No, like every scandal uses gate. It's all comparative to like,
Pizzagate just coming back around, baby.
or how about like the, not even putting the word gate in it, but just being like, oh, that's the Watergate of football, or oh,
Yeah.
that's the Watergate of finance, stuff like that.
The other thing is, living in the time we do now, doesn't a lot of the stuff that is like accused of in this movie feel like really low stakes stuff? Like the one attorney, Segretti, who's like, I just did some like writing of some letter, like some forgings of some letters and stuff. I was like, I don't even know if you'd be charged now. Like,
Yeah. I was watching
you got to
a
think a little
TikTok.
bit bigger.
I was watching a TikTok that someone was saying like, Bush might have caused 9/11 and Cheney definitely shot someone straight in the face, but I'd have them back.
So I think we can get started. The reenactment. One thing is, it opens with this, as you said last week, Black American cop who finds tape on the door. That
That's what
guy's
you're
name.
supposed to say.
You're the only person I've heard say that, but maybe you're right. That guy's name is Frank Willis. He is the actual security guard that discovered the
No
Watergate break-in.
way. See, this is what like the bonuses you could have when you do a scandal movie that quickly after the scandal.
So he got fired a few days after the break-in, and his work on this movie was his first job after getting fired, and no
Jesus.
explanation for why he was fired, except for the obvious of why he was fired.
Well, also the way the people left such a blatant trail of like, hey, I broke in this place. I'm gonna leave this evidence and like a breadcrumb trail all the way to where they were planting the whole
Why
thing
did
was
they have to? It's also why did they have to tape the door if they were inside? Is interesting.
because they wanted to get back out.
Well, they're inside. Usually, doors are locked from the outside.
Uh,
I mean, I'm sure there's an explanation, but it was curious to me.
the undercover cops that
Yeah,
started
they
pulling
happened to be
guns.
undercover, and had they not been undercover, right? Like, this is a small detail in the movie, and one thing I read is that the movie was very meticulous on all the details being like almost 100% accurate. There is one scene that wasn't, and we can talk about that when it happens. It's a very small thing. So, like, if this is completely accurate, the fact that the cops were undercover, the guy who's walkie-talking them sees guys going into the building. If they
Yes.
had been in their uniforms, he would have been like, there are cops. And maybe these guys could have gotten away. Or at the
But
very least,
did they
gone-
think a second break-in was happening at the Watergate Hotel?
I don't know, or at the very least, ran to a different part of the hotel, so then there's no connection, right? If
Yeah,
they
but
go
they
to
all run into one office cubicle.
the Democrat, in the Democrat, if they had ran somewhere else and people would have been like, oh, they were going through ladies' underwear. It's just like a completely unrelated thing. And then, so Woodward immediately gets put on it, and we go to the court scene, which I think is one of the funnier scenes with this attorney Markham, who's like, yeah, I'm not even here. And then Woodward follows him to get a drink at the water fountain. And one thing I find fascinating with this is the way people would just talk to reporters like it was their civic duty.
Okay, that is the most unrealistic part of this whole movie.
But I think that's how it worked. Is people felt obligated, like
No, for sure.
The Washington Post called you. You're like, I at least have to give them the courtesy of saying I'm not going to talk to them. Whereas today, you're like, hey, this is, you're like, click, or you don't even answer. You're like,
fuck yourself.
yeah, like
But-
I hate your newspaper.
The craziest part of the movie, and like you said, it must have happened this way, but I just can't imagine in this day and age it happening. You call someone, you're the Washington Post. You introduce yourself as the Washington Post. The guy on the other end is reluctant to talk to you. And you put the guy on hold for 10 minutes
Yeah,
to come back, and he's still waiting for you.
yeah,
Crazy.
yeah. No, for sure.
If my mom put me on hold for 10 minutes, I'd hang up and wait for her to call back.
Yeah, you just call me back when you're ready. And then in the court scene, Redford hears, oh, CIA. This guy, like the guys are whispering, and he's like CIA, and like that's when you kind of know. And then before we get to like the first Redford Hoffman interaction, which I think is funny, is there's this thing like Redford is doing a bunch of calls, and he gets this name Howard Hunt from like a source. He's like, I think it's probably his FBI source, maybe, or an FBI source. And he's like, Howard Hunt. And then he connects that to this guy. I forget who it is. His name, we'll get to it. Oh, Mitchell, who is the attorney general who had just stepped down. And at that point, you're like, oh, this is, I mean, even, like, this is me watching it now. So when I explain things like this, it's going to sound like, well, yeah, everyone who watched this then knew it. But like, it shows you how big the stakes are when the first name they get connected to this is the attorney general, right, of the United States.
Right.
Like the top law enforcement officer. So it just sort of sets the stakes. But I love like when Hoffman takes the pages and starts retyping them, and he's like, oh, it's not very clear. And Redford's like, you're right, but I don't like the way you did that. I don't mind what you did, but the way you did it.
Doesn't Hoffman have seniority over him too?
I think he's been there.
He's been working at the paper for 16 years, and Woodward has only been there for 9 months.
Yeah, but it's still, I think it's like kind of Woodward's story first. So I don't know. They I guess they go to kind of lengths to avoid that a little bit of like figuring out who's who.
Okay.
So then we get the whole Hunt was investigating Ted Kennedy thing, which they call the librarian. And I like the first part of this is so great because they talk to this librarian. She's like, oh yeah, he was looking at all these books. And then she's like, give me a second. Comes back. Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't even know who that is, which is such a crazy lie to be like, yeah, he was looking at those books too. I don't even know that person.
Yeah. It it almost like puts you on more suspicion. And it does, right?
Correct.
Like
Yes.
if she just played it cool and she was like, "Ah, you know what? I just really can't find it."
Yeah. Maybe
Right?
I must have been misremembering.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's better than just be like, "Wait, who who are you? Who am I? I don't even work here." But the other thing too is like I think that's when the movie really starts going for me, right? Is when that interaction happens and then they're in the White House library checking out all the punch cards,
Yeah, the Library of Congress.
library Library of Congress. Wait, he took out the book in the White House library, but they had to check the punch cards in the Library of Congress?
Yeah, the Library of Congress sort of records all of that. I do think it's funny too. They talk to the one guy and he's like, "That's all confidential," and they're like, "All right, we have to find someone else," and they just find a black guy who's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll give you all that." Yeah, it's just a random other guy. Like, keep asking until someone gives it to you. He's like, "Yeah, here are the punch cards."
Uh, that was cool, right? Like that was probably the coolest part of the movie was that dolly shot up above them as
Yes,
they're looking
and
through the
it's
punch
going
card.
higher and higher. There's a ton of those shots too, and they're sort of like subtle almost.
They're so subtle that there's this one where it's I had to rewind because I thought it started on his notepad when
Yeah,
he's in the car, goes out of the window of the car, and then follows them a little bit as they're driving down the street. It keeps getting farther and farther out. And then it's a helicopter shot of the whole city.
yeah,
But I was mistaken. There was a cut right before the
yeah.
helicopter shot, but I was like, "Holy shit, in the '70s, did they actually just pull that move?" And they didn't, but it was still cool.
Oh, one thing forgot to mention in the beginning is he was talking about one of the first times Woodward meets with Bradley. He's like, "Yeah, I talked to I forget what they term they like deep cover or whatever the term they use for
Deep Throat.
it's like deep background is what they call it. Deep background is like we're not even going to say we have a source. We're like just like it's like a completely anonymous source. They give you no information about it. So Deep Throat is called Deep Throat because he's a deep background source. But
Where's
he
the
was like,
throat come in? Who's deep throating who?
the Deep Throat was a at the time a very popular hardcore porn movie that came out. So Simons is like, "Oh, I call him Deep Throat because well," and like
That's
so that's where
funny.
he gets the nickname
So
from.
you were telling me that actually Deep Throat did come out recently and tell everyone who he was, and you were going to tell me here on the pod. But can I guess?
No,
Because my guess would be it's J. Edgar Hoover.
no.
And now I'm just looking it up, and he would have died by then. So it's
Yeah.
J. Edgar Hoover's ghost.
So it was the deputy director of the FBI, Mark Felt. So the second in command at the FBI.
Of J. Edgar Hoover. I was close.
Well, he died in 72, so it was around this time. Anyway, yeah, so the second in it's interesting that this happened because the second in command at the FBI was like, "This is so fucked. I have to like tell people about this." No, it's interesting in this movie. So he's like, "Yeah, I have deep background that Hunt was with the CIA and that Mitchell is involved or Hunt was like definitely involved in this."
Every time you say Hunt, I'm thinking of like Ethan Hunt.
Anyway, so so that's just a little nugget of right there, like, oh, he was getting info from Deep Throat right then. But I'm curious, we don't know from this movie, was Deep Throat a source previous? Did he just how did he hear from him this time? Like, how did it start? Would be of interest to me to know how that relationship with Woodward started. But we don't get that in this.
Nope.
And what's interesting is so in 2005 Mark Felt came out and said he was Deep Throat. There was a whole bunch of exposés about that. Last year, when Redford died, Woodward came out and said that he had told Robert Redford who Deep Throat was, and that Robert Redford never revealed that, even after it had already been revealed who Deep Throat was, that Robert Redford was like, never said I knew.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I think part of the reason he told him is because he was like, this is who it was. This is what he looks like. This is who you should get. And Hal Holbrook, who plays Deep Throat, which I had only ever seen as what looked like a 78-year-old man. Seeing a
Right?
young Hal Holbrook in this, I was like, that dude's a fucking fox.
You can barely see him.
But you can see enough to know that he was plowing through ladies in the 50s. That's all I'm saying about Hal Holbrook.
Yeah, boy.
So the next scene I want to talk about is Bradley reading the first story. And he's like, you don't have enough of the story. It's not enough. This isn't it. And he's like, stick it inside somewhere. And it's kind of the losing battle. Juxtaposing that with Spotlight, because they write another story later on that gets put at the bottom of the front page, so below the fold, which in newspaper lingo, I know what that means too. And in Spotlight, they were like, we're not reporting on any part of this story until we get the whole story, which is what the Spotlight team does, right? But it's so interesting that they're fighting against the most powerful people in this country, and they're giving little nuggets along the way, allowing for the defenses of the Nixon administration to like close ranks and be like, no one say shit about this. Like they're onto this.
And they do.
They do. Yeah, they absolutely do.
They absolutely do. Pop quiz. What's the newspaper called in Spotlight?
The Boston Globe.
Good job.
Did you really think I wasn't going to know that?
I was thinking there's like a 90% chance that you would know that.
It's one of my favorite movies. So next, Woodward calls Deep Throat. He's like, don't fucking call me about this. And then he says the whole red flag thing. Apparently that was really Woodward's apartment, the outside of that where they plant the flag. They used a ton of locations from reality. I think that might have been the parking garage, or at least one that looked like it. They were initially going to film in the Washington Post office, and all the reporters would not stop looking at the camera. They found some of the reporters were running into the bathroom to like put on makeup before. Like the reporters were trying to act. So they instead just built a studio in LA to film it because they're like, we can't fucking deal with these people.
Amateurs, Jesus.
When he first meets Deep Throat, that is one of the coolest scenes. Him getting out at the event of his taxi, running over to another taxi, going all the way over there, going down the stairs, like that really like brings the espionage aspect of this, like the trying to not get followed. And there's
Well, is it this scene or is it the next time that they meet? We have the car backfiring.
I think the next time.
Yeah, right. And then the car peeling out of the parking garage, and they're like, "Is that?" Because there was a point at the end of this movie where it's like, are they being listened in on?
Right.
And to what extent are they being listened in on? And it's like they just exchanged a vital piece of information, and then you're having this car peel out. Did that car hear what they had to say to each other? It puts you on your toes, just like it puts them on their toes.
Correct. There's one scene where Hoffman is walking around with the FBI guy that is his contact, and he looks over at the White House, and a dude with a camera turns and takes a photo of them pointed directly in that direction. And you're like, is that real?
Because he was standing in line for the White House tour, right?
Yeah.
I think that was actually done recently in like the John Krasinski Jack. What does he play? Jack Ryan. Yeah, that like something similar to that. Another movie that this reminds me of, and again, same thing with another Redford movie that we did was 3 Days. And but the Captain America Winter Soldier reference.
Yeah.
Where Captain America walks into his apartment, Nick Fury is there blasting the music.
Oh, that's almost assuredly from this too, right?
Right. It's like they took you know what? We're going to have Robert Redford in our fucking movie. We're going to reference Robert Redford all of his movies throughout our fucking film.
So Deep Throat has this quote about Liddy. He's like, he put his hand over a candle and is like, his trick is not minding. Very cool quote. And then he's like, I can't tell you anything. I can't be your source. We have to do this my way. I'll confirm what you tell me. And it's like, why are you playing these fucking games? But it totally makes sense in that I'm second in command at the FBI. I need to know that you have a different source that can be pointed to than me.
Yeah.
I can tell you that you're right. I can be source number 2 to confirm it.
Yeah.
But I absolutely cannot be your only source.
Well, the other cool thing that happens later on is the way that they get information out of people using plausible deniability.
Right.
Where it's like count to 10, blink once, like hang up, leave this, and I was just like, I get the reason that they did that, but during it, I was like, that's going to bite them in the ass. And it did.
Sort of, because the real Woodward, I mean, this movie is almost totally fact, right? But the real Woodward and Bernstein believed towards the end that they were getting set up. Until that guy on the inside admitted what was going on and things started to unravel, they were like, we may have been fucked on this. Like we may have been totally sold out to like, and we're gonna
Well,
get
I
screwed.
mean, weren't you worried? Like there's a point in the movie, and it's the point that I was talking about where Woodward goes over to Bernstein's and turns up the radio, and it's like we're being listened in on. It's like we might be in danger for our lives. Didn't you think they were in danger like long before they thought that they were in danger?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like I thought when they like kept going into that woman and like talking to her or trying to get information out of her, I was like, there's gonna be a bullet flying through that window, taking her out,
Right. So the next part is when he has to go to Miami because the New York Times got part of the story and they figured out it was the Ned Beatty character in Miami. The only scene in this movie.
What other Ned Beatty movie have we done on the pod?
Have we done Shooter?
No.
I don't remember a Ned Beatty movie. You're gonna tell.
Superman.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about Ned Beatty and Superman. So the only scene in the entire movie that is not real is Bernstein tricking the secretary into walking away so that he could sneak into the office.
Oh, but it was so cool.
And so there's this cool story so William Goldman is credited as the writer of this screenplay. And through research, he did really it is mostly his screenplay. He also wrote Butch Cassidy, Papillon, Marathon Man, a little movie called The Ghost in the Darkness, The Princess Bride.
I've never seen Butch Cassidy. I really want to do Butch Cassidy, and I hear Papillon is a really good movie, and we should do that too. But we should secretly do Goldman's filmography.
I mean, it's a pretty fucking great filmography.
We're almost there.
Well, no, I skipped a ton of shit.
Oh.
We are not almost there. There's a lot.
You've done a lot of his movies.
Yeah, not so. Anyway, Goldman was called to an impromptu meeting with Redford, Bob Woodward, and Carl Bernstein. At the time, Goldman's screenplay had been the one that they accepted, but they had some issues with it. And apparently, there had to be a ton of rewrites. So, but at that meeting, Goldman was presented with a new screenplay that was written by Bernstein and his then girlfriend, Nora Ephron. Nora Ephron of You've Got Mail. Yeah. And Goldman refused to read it and walked out of the meeting. It was like, fuck this.
You know what that kind of reminds me of? That kind of reminds me of the relationship of in the movie of You've Got Mail. Is it You've Got? Yeah, it's You Got Mail with Posey.
Yeah.
And her boyfriend, Meg Ryan's boyfriend, being a newspaper guy.
Yeah.
That, maybe that is a secret Woodward Ephron Easter egg in there,
So, and apparently,
wait, was it Woodward or Bernstein with the girlfriend?
Bernstein, and then Woodward was apparently unhappy with Bernstein's scripts as well, and then he is quoted as telling Goldman, he called Goldman later to apologize and said, "I don't know the 6 worst things I've done in my life, but letting that happen is definitely one of them."
Bernstein admitted that because, okay, you know what? Props to him.
So this leads to the Miami leads to the Dahlberg check, which leads to the Dahlberg phone call, and the other guy, I think it's maybe Hunt on the line. I forget. And it is a 6-minute continuous shot of Robert Redford on the phone with these guys. And it is so fascinating the entire time.
It's very cool. Yeah. It's actually amazing how much this movie would get away with. In today's world, it's you can't show that. You have to have punchy cuts, action sequences. But the way this movie is just like captures your interest in just a phone call or just looking through
Yeah.
documents.
And Dahlberg says, I shouldn't tell you this, but I gave it to Mr. Stans. He's the head of finance for Nixon. The next thing is this meeting where, they're all talking about their stories. And then there's the one guy at the end who's like, we should be worried about this. And Bradley's like, well, how bad could this be? And I guess the guy's name is Scott. He's like, it's not just that we don't really have any other sources. It's not that no other reporter is, talking about this. I just don't believe their story, because why would they do this? Which is such a good point, because Nixon didn't need to do any of this.
Right.
Like he would have been fine if he had never done any of this, but he was so paranoid. And another good companion movie to this would obviously be Frost Nixon, which is a very good movie.
I've never seen it.
It's like, we definitely should do it. It's a great Michael Sheen role too. We'll just do a month of Michael Sheen movies.
Who's Frost?
David Frost. He's a guy that he is a. You'll learn this from the movie, depending on how real that movie is. He was an interviewer who was going to be considered like a fluff interview for Nixon, because Nixon had not done an interview after Watergate, and so he agreed to do it with Frost because he thought he could walk all over Frost. And it was a multi-day interview, and then in the last day of the interview, Frost just fucking destroys him.
Holy
shit.
shit.
And Nixon just admits to a bunch of shit he didn't really want to.
So there's a character in this movie called Donald Segretti.
Yeah, who looks like a fucking serial killer.
Holy shit. I just was like I got busy doing something because I was watching this movie in the middle of the day, and I paused the movie.
Yeah.
And I just so happened to pause it right when Segretti answers the door and he gives out
smiles.
Smiles.
Yeah.
And I'm like taking my son out of the bedroom, walking him across the hall, and he starts crying, like crying. I'm like, what is going on? And my wife comes out and she's like, what's wrong? I was like, I don't know. And she looks up at the TV and she goes, oh, it might have to do something with the creepiest man in the world on our television.
What's also funny, that guy is a dead ringer for the real guy.
Really?
He looks so much. I was like, why would they choose this fucking guy? He looks so much like him.
Yeah, and he is a scumbag, right? Like that, the actual dude, the way that this actor plays him, not being too harsh on this actor's looks. I'm sure, makeup or something had to go along with it, but
it's mostly the teeth, honestly.
It is mostly the teeth. But the way he's played this guy, what a sleazy scumbag.
I actually felt bad for him.
You felt bad for him? Why?
Because he's like a very minor player caught up in what he did. So what he went to jail for and lost his bar license for was for forging the letter. He is the one who did the Canuck letter. So he was going around doing things to sabotage the other candidacy, which to me in this day and age seems like very low stakes bullshit stuff, right?
Sure.
And he got caught. If it had just been that story that came out, I don't know that he would have ever been charged. But he was then lumped into this whole big conspiracy for Nixon trying to steal the election and get the other candidates to have no shot against him. That it in retrospect, it's almost like the conspiracy makes everything worse. Like, yes, what he did is bad, right? He forged a letter to make a candidate look terrible. I don't know, but to me, it was like he was like, "Yeah, this is nickel and dime shit." And then they're like, "Oh, what about that letter?" He's like, "That might have been a quarter."
Also, like what he said, what did he say? I did worse things in college.
Yeah, which is I mean, how worse, right? Are we talking,
I'm thinking like similar things, but worse.
So not assault things of a nature?
I wasn't thinking in that direction, but I was thinking.
But look at his face. Look at the teeth. So the big breakthrough in this movie is the creep list.
Okay, answer me this.
Yeah.
Answer me this. You have an organization.
Committee to re-elect the president.
Community to re-elect the president. And you get caught up in one of the biggest scandals ever. And your acronym is going to be CREEP.
Well, you should have considered that from the jump. I agree.
Oh my God.
So they asked this lady, like, hey, you were dating this guy. Can you get the list from him? She's like, I can't do that. Like, I don't want to see him again. And Robert Redford's like, all right, sorry, we don't want to put you in a compromising position. Hoffman's like, what are you doing? You gotta keep pushing her. And he's like, no, it's over. But to me, the way Redford acted, it was like he knows she's gonna give him the list. He's like, if I push too much, I might not get it. But either way, like there's this juxtaposition of their styles. Whereas Hoffman is like dogged, will not take no for an answer,
Yeah.
will keep coming back to
Of
someone,
course.
and Redford's like, oh, okay, you don't want to talk to me? That's
But you
fine.
see both ways working throughout the movie, right?
Correct.
When
And
he goes in and the sister answers the door
yeah,
and the other sister's like clearly not wanting to talk to him, but he's like, "Oh, I'll invite myself in, grab myself a cup of coffee, get a smoke, I'll sit down on the couch, stuff like that." He calls up Woodward and he's like, "You know how many cold cups of coffee I had to drink to get
he's
this?"
like, I drink 20 cups of coffee. He's like, yeah, what am I supposed to do with all these notes? He's like, what was I supposed to do? That was the real house where Bernstein talked to the bookkeeper. That was her house.
Wow.
So, and then I like
So
she
she
sit-
just sat there and watched her life being reenacted.
I guess, yeah. And then she, I mean, she gives him quite a bit of information, but like it's really because it turns out that she just really likes Sloane.
Yeah. Well, that whole thing is interesting as they go down the list and interview people and crossing them out. They get to this one lady. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the movies. They get to this one lady and she is so willing to talk. She's just like, let me pour my heart out. And they're like, oh my God, I knew it. If we just kept working at this, we'd get our big break soon. This is so worth it. Right. And then they're like, Judy? And she's like, no. And they're like,
No.
fuck me, dude. And I was like, oh, I felt that too. Right. But you know what's crazy is that I thought Nixon was a Democrat. I did
No.
not realize Nixon was a Republican.
He was
And
up against JFK.
Here's the fucked up part about this is that I think because my whole family has been Republican for
Yeah.
so long, is that some sort of like brainwashing thing where they're like, no, he's a bad president. He's not associated with us.
All the bad ones, that's not us.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not like that.
Exactly. The only president that my parents and grandparents have ever said was like okay on the Democrat side was JFK.
That's interesting. My dad thinks Clinton was pretty good, minus all the sex stuff. So Sloane, played by Stephen Collins, I was like, Stephen Collins, I know he's not acting anymore for a reason. It's what you would think.
Damn.
He just admitted to over 3 decades fucking like several different minors. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
what'd you
why.
think? Yeah,
Oh, I thought he was not a very good actor.
no. Well, I mean, who knows? I don't know. He didn't have to put a lot of effort into Seventh Heaven. I don't think. I'm still fucking mad about Seventh Heaven.
I don't. What are you mad about Seventh Heaven?
So Seventh Heaven, it was going to be their final season. They were going to get canceled, and Everwood, a show I loved, was going to get renewed. Seventh Heaven had its finale, and like 11 million fucking people watched it. So the WB/CW and all their infinite wisdom was like, oh, that's it. Everwood's canceled. We're going to bring back Seventh Heaven. The next season, no one watched it. They had all just watched the finale and tore my fucking heart out.
Don't people do that though? Like they know a show's about to end, and it's like, oh, it's kind of like, within the scope of the decade, right? Like, oh, it's a popular show. Some people watch it, some people don't. But like, oh, it's the finale. I gotta watch the finale.
Well, because Seventh Heaven went on for years. So like people who had given up on it was like, oh, I'll check out the finale. Because also back then,
Right.
if you didn't watch something, you're like, I don't know when's the next time I'll ever get the chance to watch this. I remember, rest in peace, James Van Der Beek. It's always interesting, like the celebrity deaths that like make you like really feel. And I think because he was like, I've seen like videos of him before his like diagnosis. And he seemed like such a cool guy. But I remember Dawson's Creek came out when I was way too young to watch it, and I had missed the series. What's
Premiere?
the pilot? Yeah, the pilot. I had missed it, And then it was playing when I was down at my grandma's, and my grandma was like, "Nope, we have to go run an errand real quick." And I was like so fucking pissed because it was replaying. I was like, "This is my only shot to know how this thing starts." After the Sloan call, we get the John Mitchell call where he's like, "Oh, I think is this the reference to the K where he's like, I'm gonna like cut her tit off or something or whatever he says." And then Bradley's like, "Just leave the part out about her tit."
Yeah, that's it.
And he's
Correct.
like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because this is a family paper." So
Whew.
then you already talked about Segretti. We get the next deep throat, and we learn about rat fucking, which is a real term about screwing the other side in an election.
The whole point of this is to bug the Democratic headquarters so that they would get an advantage of re-electing Nixon, right?
Right.
But it happens anyways.
Yeah.
And the only reason it's like a divine inter or what, like a catch 22, or I don't know how you want to,
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
yeah, self-fulfilling prophecy is that he then has to resign because you were caught trying to rig an election that didn't even need rigging.
Right. Yeah.
Crazy.
Just fucking himself. So after this, when he walks out and like the camera is following him, and then he just does the sudden turn around, he's like, and there's like no one behind him. And then I think he walks basically all the way back to DC. Like we see him walking through like all the monuments and everything. It's very cool.
Well, it's funny because he's like walking casually and then he kind of puts a little hurry pep in
Yeah.
his step. Like you think he's being followed, he thinks he's being followed, and then you realize the movie is like, oh, it's the paranoia is eating him up, which I was sitting there thinking like, I've been watching this movie waiting for this dude to get shot at.
Yeah.
Or like a car, like in 3 Days of the Condor, like a car pulling up and being like, get in.
Yeah. Do not get in that car. We next get Sally saying that Clausen told her he wrote the Canuck letter, and his whole thing is like, I have a wife and a family and a dog and a cat.
Yeah, and then the head of the Post calls him and he gives the same spiel.
And he's like, I don't want to print you in her apartment, but I do want to print what she said. Basically like strong arming him into like, you tell me, we're going to print one of those things. So just tell me which one we should print. And then we get sort of the beginning of the end with like, they're like the fifth guy has to be Haldeman, who is like second in command to, although there's a lot of people who are like second in command to Nixon, but you know, Bradley says we don't have it. And so he's like, they go to, or no, Woodward says we don't have it. And it's funny that like Woodward is like really taking what Bradley told him of like, don't print it until we have enough. So then they get Sloan to confirm, and he confirms by where they're like, would we be wrong to say he was Haldeman? And he's like, I'll say this, I would have no problem with you saying that.
Well, all of the other ones where they're like talking to the woman and they're like planning what they're gonna say, like they're planning their back and forth. So it's all scripted, but it's made to sound like non-scripted, right? Like off the cuff stuff that's already scripted is like, and we'll be like, you know, oh, we know M is so and so, so we don't need to know M. But what about L? And it's like if she says something like that, I was like, oh, that's really cool. That's really smart. All of that, I like that. They did that to Hallbrook, or to get the information about Hallbrook too.
Right. I was trying to look up. So as the reports are coming out, there's this scene of a guy driving in to the White House 2 times. And I'm like trying to figure out who that was supposed to be. Yeah, it's just a scene of like the story comes out, and then so like almost like a fixer guy drives into the White House. He goes to the gate and he's like, they let him in. But yeah, I can't figure out who that was supposed to be. So they say the FBI confirms it was John Haldeman. He's like, seems thin, get another source. So then he calls DOJ and he does the count to 10 thing. And Bradley's like, we could wait another day. Let's go with it. I love the next day. Woodstein.
That's great. Do you think he was confused by per the instructions?
I know. I think everybody was covered in their ass because a bunch of people started coming out saying like, "Oh, I didn't. That's not true. This and that." So it's like
Yeah, but
when,
they had to have known people were going to say that anyways.
yeah, I guess it is. It is so weird when they're talking about like non-denial denials because here, like in 2026, people will be caught seemingly red-handed, and they're just like, "That's fake news. That's not true. That didn't happen." Like they're just willing to lie publicly and just be like, "That's not real." Whereas
Yeah,
back
but the
then they're
majority
like,
of the public is
"Oh,
willing to accept that, though.
yeah." And it's just a different time. So I do love the the FBI won't talk, and then the guy's like, fuck you," and they think the whole thing was a setup, and they go back to Bradley and like, "What do you want to do? You have to make a statement." He's like, "Well, here's my statement." It's like, "I stand by our story," which does make that guy just seem like a badass.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, thinking about the movie The Post, and the story they reported before this, about the Pentagon Papers, and our it's that like the Washington Post at this time would seem to be like above repute, but you have these people like, oh, they're just trying to take us down or whatever. It's like, I don't know, man. They got a pretty good reputation this decade.
Yeah, but people are willing to believe things that doesn't disrupt their social norm that much, right? If all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, the president hired a group of people to break into the Watergate and plant bugs in the Democratic headquarters, you're like, that's absurd,
Yeah,
right? So then if the guy is like, yeah, I never said that, people are just willing to believe that so as to not like absolutely implode, right?
correct.
I
There's
mean,
this meme right now going around about Pam Bondi, because she's quoted as saying something along the lines of like, if we, she says, if we prosecute everybody in the Epstein files, the whole system will collapse. And then underneath the meme, it's Brad Pitt from Inglourious Basterds. He's like, it sounds like a damn good deal.
that's pretty good.
So after this, he goes to Deep Throat, and Deep Throat's like, you fucked this up. You shot too high and you missed. You have people feeling sorry for Haldeman. And then Woodward is like, fuck your rules. You need to tell me right now what happened. You need to be my source, or this is all going to end. Like, we're not going to be able to do this. And then at the end, he's like, your lives are in danger. And so he has the Bernstein scene where they turn the music up and he uses the typewriter. So cool. And then he tells him why Sloan he didn't name Haldeman because no one asked. And then basically the final scene with Bradley, and it's another cool scene where he's like, you guys look tired. You should just go home. And you think he's telling him you're off the case. And then he's like, and then 15 minutes later, get back to it.
Yeah.
Because it's just the Constitution at stake. And then he's like, if you mess up again, I'll be
It
mad.
is one of the more like badass monologues in this movie.
It is. And then it sort of ends with them typing up the story on Inauguration Day. Everyone else except them. And, it's a pan in shot on them. It keeps getting closer and closer. And then the movie sort of just ends, which I find the oddest part of this. You have the typewriter thing of like each story coming out of all the people going to jail, of Nixon saying he won't resign and then resigning.
Yep.
But the movie does feel like it just ends. And maybe that's purposeful because the movie is about Woodward and Bernstein and not about the aftermath. But I don't know. It's an odd choice to me.
So my understanding of the ending, and you're gonna probably be like, well, that's obvious, Alon. Yeah, duh. But I think it really worked, is that they have a story here that will essentially end the presidency for Nixon, right?
Right.
And they're like, I'm going to type this up. So they get to it. They start typing. As the son of a bitch is getting inaugural. What's the verb called?
Inaugurated.
As he's getting inaugurated, right? It is playing in the, like, imagine, right? Like, I think lesser men would have been like, well, it's too late. It's too late, and it's really disheartening writing this article too late as the guy that we were trying to get to not get away with it is getting blared on the TV getting away with it. And they push through and they pursue and they write it anyways as it's being broadcast. And I was like, to me, the ending is to show their undying pursuit of truth. And I was like, that's what that ending means to me.
And we're in fun fact territory. William Goldman said Bob Woodward was extremely helpful to him, but Bernstein was not, which is why he threw away the second half of the book. So maybe that also is an explanation of why it ends where it does.
I think it's the undying pursuit of the truth.
It can be both. The duality of man. So the two lead actors memorized each other's lines so that they could have like a cinema verita feeling of like talking over each other, which definitely does come out in the movie. Apparently Bob Woodward told Robert Redford who Deep Throat was, but did not tell Bernstein that he did. So like, I don't know that Woodward and Bernstein got along as much as their joining of names would suggest.
Although, yeah, but I like that though. Like, I like the confrontation they pose to one another.
Correct. Hal Holbrook was the first and only choice for Deep Throat. I think that in part because of the look. Holbrook refused, but Robert Redford actually went to his house and convinced him. And he was like, Deep Throat will be the character that the audience remembers most from this movie, which I think is absolutely correct.
I think it's absolutely correct. I think also probably the character that's referenced the most in media.
Right.
Especially in espionage-esque films and literature.
So Jason Robards is the only actor to win. They won some other below the line stuff. This is the year Rocky won Best Picture and Best Director. During film, and also The Bookkeeper was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, which I think is a really cool little thing. So during filming, Jason Robards, who plays Ben Bradley, thought it was important for him to always be in the newsroom. So he is like in the back of shots in his office, just like reading a book, reading something, doing something. Like he just thought it's almost filmed like The Office, where they're just, the characters are always there.
Yeah.
And then Jason Robards was always Robert Redford's first choice for Ben Bradley. Robards said he liked the portrayal, but he would have chose Fred Astaire, which I think is funny. And then the last little thing, which I think is, Robert Redford swinging his dick around. The South African press reported that the apartheid censor board had ordered several cuts to this movie. So when Robert Redford found out, he contacted the board stating that if they did the planned cuts, he would set a boycott of South African cinemas screening American films. And so they did not make the cuts.
Holy shit.
It's like, fuck you and your cuts.
You want to hear something kind of weird about Fred Astaire?
You gonna tell me he was a bad guy?
No. So he starred in a movie with Audrey Hepburn called Funny Face.
Yeah.
Which was a movie based on a play.
Okay.
That he also starred in. He played the same guy.
Okay.
Funny Face came out many years afterwards, and he still played the same love interest. So the age difference between the two leads were quite big, but Fred Astaire is a good looking guy, right? Would you like to know who played his opposite in the theatrical play? His love interest in the theatrical play?
Who?
His sister.
It's odd.
Yep.
Is it because she could dance?
Apparently it's because the Funny Face theater play and the movie were so different in script for some reason that it wasn't as a romantic role between them when it was a theatrical play as it turned out to be in the movie.
Oh, so it's like kind of like Leon the Professional. Well, thanks for listening to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And this is Alon, and we finally watched All the President's Men.